Spokane listens when business talks. Welcome to Business Talks, the region's only local business talk show with your host, Ryan McNeice. Business Talks is brought to you by our friends at STCU and Well Dressed Walrus. Now, let's get down to business with Business Talks.
Welcome to the show. I'm Ryan McNeice, and I'm here with Greg Heister. Thank you for being here.
It's great to be here, Ryan.
Finally. We made it work. You got a busy schedule, but we appreciate it. A lot of ground to cover. Greg, Seasons on the Fly, producer, host, I believe 13 regional Emmys with regards to Seasons on the Fly, the Iditarod shows you've done.
Yeah.
As well as, of course, we can't go without mentioning Gonzaga broadcasting,
Sure.
Gonzaga basketball. So we'll cover that as well.
Okay.
But also a lodge owner in Alaska,
Yeah.
fishing.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Seasons on the Fly. How did that come to be?
Well, a dream, right? I mean, I think many aspects in life you always have to start with that. But I think it started as a childhood thing. Like, it's something that I always wanted to do since I was a small boy. Fishing was a big part of our life. The outdoors was a big part of my family's life. I grew up a big fan of The American Sportsman. I'm not old enough to have seen it live, but certainly in reruns and syndication. And Kurt Gowdy was a favorite of mine growing up. And, of course, he was one of the great play-by-play guys of all time. And so I set out to be Kurt Gowdy. And so when the time in my career was ripe enough to start Seasons on the Fly, because I'd always done outdoors television in my local duties. So whether it was in Anchorage or down here in Spokane, it was Wild Alaska up there. It was a series called The Sporting Life here. Seasons on the Fly just became kind of a offshoot of all of that.
Right.
We extended, when I left local television full time, I set out to make what I think is the best fly fishing show that the country's ever had. So.
Well, and I love a quote that is out there, that many of the fishing shows today are produced by fishermen who don't know television, or by television producers who don't know fly fishing. And you yourself have been a guide for several years in multiple states.
Yeah, and look, there's a lot of people out there that love to fly fish, and I'm not putting myself on any pedestal. I think the more people that are doing it, the best. Some of the greatest stewards that our country's ever known have been fly fishermen. With that said, it has been my life's passion since I was, this
And you didn't
big.
grow up in this area?
I grew up south of Buffalo, New York. We had great fishing there. I grew up in the Catskill Mountains around Roscoe, New York, Trout Town, USA, the birthplace of fly fishing in this country. So I've always had a great appreciation for the history of it. I'm a big fly tyer. I have a huge passion for that. My house is full of materials to tie flies.
And if folks haven't tried that, it's not easy to do, or to do it well.
Yeah, but I think everybody should, right? Because I think the one thing I learned as a small kid doing this was that it was something else when I could take feathers and hair, tie it on a piece of metal, and get a fish to eat it.
Right.
Like, it was the greatest thing of my childhood besides fresh food, right? And so even today, there's a difference when I go buy a fly versus catching a fish on something that I've made.
Part of the process.
It hooked me, and
no pun intended there.
no, but seriously, it hooked me in ways that I could write books about today, and to me, it's the essence of it.
It's the art. It's the process.
It is the process. It's 100% of the process, and I think it's also understanding better a more in-depth way of looking at the natural world and our ecosystems and how important they are.
So how did you combine the passion, obviously, of fly fishing? And as you mentioned, there's a lot of fly fishermen, fly fisher. A lot of women are really taking on the sport in high percentages. How did you take that passion, though, and combine it with the challenges of production and producing a show that would match up with your expectations of the sport?
Well, I just think it was a simple merger, right? Because I'd worked in television all these years, and I consider myself a storyteller. I think that's what I do best. And so to tell the story of our fishing journeys, I think, was kind of an easy evolution for me. I don't, and this is the honest to God truth, I think I've watched my show on television 3 or 4 times in all these years. Honestly, I don't watch outdoors television at all. I don't sit around and watch it. As a kid, I loved The American Sportsman. because we had 3 channels, and
and that was one of them.
Saturday,
Yeah.
Sunday mornings, whenever it was on, it was awesome. But it's just something that I felt I could do well, and I could do it justice. And again, it's the idea of trying to create the next era, next generation of stewards.
Mm-hmm.
Fly fishermen have a different perspective.
Absolutely.
Generally, we don't kill things. We're not into killing fish. Some fish,
Catch
I don't
and
have any
release.
issues with that. I'm not down on people who do choose to do that.
More of a catch and release
Yeah,
attitude.
it's more of a soulful thing. Like a lot of the fish that I chase don't live in ugly places.
No. Well, and obviously worth noting is a large visual piece of Seasons on the Fly that I've enjoyed is you've combined that storytelling with the geographic locations, whether you've been in Iceland, whether it's Russia, Alaska, Missouri River.
Yeah.
And we got to mention Missouri River,
You
Joe
should-
Bloomquist.
Yeah,
and
Super Joe.
Super Joe
Yeah.
and Missouri River Extreme Fly Fishing.
Yeah.
The Mighty Mo, I've had the opportunity for the last 10 years to go
Yeah.
there, and amazing.
Yeah, I think if I had one day to fish for the rest of my life, the Mo would be one of the top 2 or 3 spots that I'd go.
It's unreal.
And Joe Bloomquist I met through Coach Few. That's Coach Few's close friend, and Coach Few's been fishing with him for a long, long time.
Well,
and so we get over there and fish with Joe.
He does a great job.
Yeah, he's the best.
And Lindsay, his wife, does a
Yeah.
great job as well. But again, the geographic locations and how you've told the background story of the history of fly fishing in the areas. Again, the Iceland show comes to mind because you did such a good job of telling that story. How much research and prep time goes into before you buy your tickets and fly?
A lot. I mean, that's what interests me, right, is to understand the history of the fish, to understand the history of the flies that we're using, and to understand the geology. And I mean, when you're a storyteller, you want to know all of that stuff because that's what keeps it interesting. So that when you're there on the river and it's a tough day and the fish aren't eating, you can at least look around and say, well, that rock is, 80,000 years old or whatever, or you're on the Spokane River and you're chasing red bands and they're not there, but you can, these fish the genetics are 40,000 years. I mean, it's really cool.
There's a story.
Yeah, there's a tremendous story in it. And those, we live in Spokane. Spokane River is a jewel, and we should be protecting it even more than we do today. Those fish, the genetics are 40,000 years old. I don't think there's a trout whose genetics are older in North America than those red bands that we have in this river and other rivers that are around here.
How associated are you with the show, with the production of Seasons on the Fly, with respective fly shops in our area or otherwise, whether it be Silverbow? Or
Yeah, when the show first started, we did a lot locally. And Silverbow's a great fly shop. Sean Vicentainer and his brother and the guys over there do a great job. We did a lot locally when this thing first started. There wasn't a lot of money to go.
GoPro, I think, was on
Yeah,
board.
to go expanding around the globe and stuff. So when the show started to grab some traction and it was evolved and had been around for a while, then there was less to do locally. I wish there was more. It's cheaper, quicker,
Right, and go
stuff
film.
like that. But there's still some things we can do here, and we plan to do that.
How Seasons on the Fly, obviously being a passion of yours, gaining recognition with Emmy Awards, et cetera. Explain how the Iditarod got on your map in terms of an interest.
Yeah, so Iditarod. So my first job in television was in Cleveland at the CBS affiliate there. And from there, I was, 23, 24 years old, and I was in Cleveland. The job was tremendous, but I needed to get outside.
Right.
And so I got offered jobs in Montana and Idaho, but the pay was so bad, right, I couldn't afford to go do it. And then finally I got a job offer in Anchorage, and the money was functional.
Right. Like
Let me say that.
This I could make work.
Yeah, I had a car payment, college loan payments at the time. It didn't leave much left for food. So their offer was good enough where I think there was still $100 or $200 to eat with a month. So I headed north and always wanted to go there. And my job there was at the ABC station. They were the official station of the Iditarod sled dog race at the time. So I got to go out on the trail from start to finish for those years that I worked there. And what it did in me is just it sparked an absolute passion for the thing.
Just a fascination,
I think
passion.
it's the greatest story in sports. If you're a storyteller and you love to tell stories, there is no greater story in sports to tell than the Iditarod sled dog race. Most people are very interested in the dogs, and they're an amazing critter,
but
an amazing creature. I mean, they eat 10,000 calories a day. They'll run 125 miles a day, and a lot of them will do it very happily. But it was the people. Mm-hmm. I met so many people covering that event that were collegiately educated, that were very, very bright, articulate, and the hardest working people I've had been around at that time in my life. And so it just like pulled me right in. Mm-hmm. And then when you look at, I told you before in the break, I'm a landscape guy.
Right.
When you throw the landscapes in as the backdrop for that thing, with those people, with those animals, for a storyteller, there is no greater event, I promise you, than the Iditarod Trail Sled Dog Race to tell. I have great respect for it and great respect for the people, what it stands for, what it's done for all animals, specifically our dogs,
right.
Even though it gets beat up by animal rights groups and things like that. But every domesticated dog in this country has benefited from that sled dog race.
Mm-hmm. Has all the elements, fundamental elements of a story.
Yeah.
And you've told that story.
Yeah.
And you've lived the
lot.
story.
Yeah, a
You've
lot.
lived the story.
And I love the Arctic. I mean, I'll throw that out there too. I love to be cold. There's something about walking across snow that crunches that is visceral for me.
Right.
Like it fires my innards, my soul
well,
up.
That's
in
somewhat
ways
unique.
That, yes,
and foreshadowing for potentially our weather here in Spokane. But, but that is unique.
Yeah, and I've always been a winter guy, though. My mom's a winter person.
Well,
and so,
you say the words buffalo,
yeah,
and you start thinking cold.
Yeah.
Let's take a short little break
Okay.
and come back. I want to talk some more about the Iditarod. I want to touch on the lodge that you've started as well, and we'll talk about some GU basketball as well.
Sounds
we'll be
good.
right back.
Hi, I'm Larry Myers, owner of River Ridge Hardware. Welcome to our garden center here on the corner of Garland and Driscoll. We have fresh plants that come in weekly from all of our local growers. We can make your garden look like our garden. Here at River Ridge, we've been here 30 years. We're your full-service neighborhood hardware store. This is our sprinkler aisle where my knowledgeable staff will help you put together your sprinkler system so it will make your yard lush green for the spring and summer. This is River Ridge Hardware's rental center where we provide a multitude of equipment for rent for the do-it-yourselfer. Next time you're working on your home or yard this spring and summer, stop by, say hi, and we'll help you get the project done.
See you tomorrow night, and thanks again for taking care of the painting.
I got this.
Bye.
Weekends are made for painting. Let the experts at Rada Paint take care of you.
Hi. This looks amazing.
Rada Paint, over 80 years of quality, tradition, and trust. Find it in every can.
Hello there, Internet. My name is Braden Magruder, and I'm just coming out of the Spokane Talks building, and I'm excited to bring to you guys a new announcement that I am going to be the new host of the Youth Spotlight program. Now, our old host, Colin, he's off to Texas Christian University to pursue a degree in theater and broadcasting, and you know what? That's great for him, but that's what I like to call adulting. And you know, I don't think that we have time for adulting with the Youth Spotlight program. What the Youth Spotlight program is here to do is to bring to you guys news, the greatest news of some of the most amazing people here throughout Spokane that are, just going in high school, maybe about to go into college, you know. These people are achieving life's dreams and they are so young. And I think that these are stories that you guys should know about. And I'm so excited to be bringing them to you. Now, I'm a Spokane native myself. I've been performing throughout Spokane in various different shows. I just closed the show of Music Man, and you know, I guess I like long walks on the beach, keeping my business attire, while also keeping my French fry socks on close at hand. It's going to be a great year, and I'm so excited to be your guys' host. So tune into Youth Spotlight to watch me interview some of the most amazing people. Thank you and have a great day.
Welcome back. I'm Ryan McNeice, and we're here in the studio
Am I sitting
with
up
Greg
straight,
Heister.
Ryan? Like my mom would kill me.
Maybe we're both hunching over. I don't know. Okay. You're doing just fine.
All right, good.
We've covered a lot of ground talking about the Iditarod, talking about Seasons on the Fly, and really the magnitude of these productions that you've done. And at Iditarod, we were just discussing over 20 seasons.
Yeah.
And I think you just indicated that you basically dug the hole for your tent at 65 below.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's cold. It's the Arctic.
When you said the cold gets you excited, I wouldn't have thought you meant 65
Well,
below
it's
cold.
a challenge, right? Like, it's an emotional challenge. Like, I enjoy getting in those places where, sometimes people can fuel that fire by going to the gym.
Yeah.
Okay, today I want to, squat, whatever.
Yeah, and the endorphins that come with that.
There's a lot of that stuff. And so for me, I was, especially early in my life when I was in my late 20s and really starting out covering that race, it was something that I wanted to practice. I was mountaineering a lot at the time. I love to be out in the cold. So you want to go out and test yourself. Can you deal with that? So
challenge your limits.
Yeah, one of my first races it was maybe the coldest race on record. But I remember waking up in my tent in Ruby on the Yukon River. Down on the river, I had dug a hole and pitched my tent, and it was 65 below zero. That's straight temperature. That's without any wind. But it was at least 40 below the entire race.
I would have been
that
thinking,
time.
what am I doing?
Yeah, it's a
different sincerely
place.
when you're passionate about something. That's why you go to that extreme.
Yeah.
And if you don't, have it, you don't do it.
With the cold, I've always always had the mentality that if I get cold, I'll just get up and walk. As long as you keep the blood moving, right, you're going to be good. And I saw a lot of mushers over the years covering that race where they had fallen asleep and lost the dog team or whatever, and the dog team comes in, and so the mushers, 10, 20, 30.
And what exactly is a musher? Describe what that is.
Is the driver of the sled,
right?
So it's the coach of the dog team. They're in charge of feeding and running and a run-rest ratio. They're really a coach. People think that they're the athlete behind the sled, and they're really not. Those dogs are the athletes, and the musher's really the manager. But they'll come walking in, and it's been 50 below zero, and I just saw them survive, and they'll be okay. And they may have some frostbite and some spots and things like that, but they survived.
To each their own,
yes,
right?
yes.
Well, how have you combined your passion for obviously fly fishing, production, a lot of travel time? Iditarod, spent a lot of time in Alaska, but Gonzaga basketball.
Yeah.
Doing play-by-play for Gonzaga basketball over the years. So
I'm a lucky guy
that's got to
in
be
that.
a thrill and exciting to follow the teams we've been seeing for the last 20 years.
It's been awesome. And remember, so early in my life, I wanted to be Kurt Gowdy.
Right.
And I can remember being, I think it was 1980, January 27th, 1980, I believe, Super Bowl 13, the Steelers and the Cowboys. And I grew up a big
One of the most
Steelers guy.
famous.
Yeah, 35-31 final. But
Yep.
I remember having one of those old audio recorders, hitting play and record and putting it in front of a television and recording it. And listening to it later. It was Kurt Gowdy and John Brody, and I think Merlin Olsen was a part of that team too.
Olsen, yep.
But I remember what a great legacy that was, because here was this kid in a little tiny town in western New York that will always remember and associate Kurt Gowdy's voice with that football game, right? So
Not one without the other.
yes,
Yeah.
no, exactly, right? And so I just thought, well, what a cool way to leave a legacy in this world. So I set out to be a play-by-play. It took a long time. These jobs are enormously hard to get.
Well, because other people are having those similar experiences.
Yes,
saying,
they
"I
all.
want to do this."
Any sportscaster wants them, right? And so, it's been 18 seasons now, or 19. I don't know exactly how many years it's been.
18 good seasons.
It was Dan Dickau's senior year, my first year. Doing
was it really?
Yeah, and I was terrible. I was terrible. There's no doubt. But
Well,
it started a process, right? Learning and the one thing that I can always say about, I respect the position I have doing those games. I am courtside for what I think is the greatest college basketball
in the country.
program in the country. Mark Few is one of my closest friends, and I get to see him have tremendous success in his life and emotionally be involved in that. And I am extremely lucky to have been a part of that program in a small way for all of these years. And
Well, I'd say
I
a
hope,
large way.
yeah, well, I just
The
hope, you know,
voice
that
of.
I can continue to do it justice over the years as they continue. It's allowed me now. I do games for ESPN. I do more games for Pac-12 now than anybody. And so it's grown into other things. But my days doing Gonzaga will always be, you know, at the top of the list. And number one, it's a program that's done it right. But number two, the Fews are my favorite people. And Coach Few and I have done so many things together. And I think it's, you know, what's happened with that program has been awesome
Oh, it's monumental.
to be next to and to watch and to
It's
see.
a great
and-
story, and as you
yeah.
said, you are literally courtside getting to watch it.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned earlier, you've combined your passion of basketball and broadcasting with spending time on the river with Mark Few as well.
Yeah, which is always a treat.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always a treat. And, you know, I laugh about this stuff all the time because obviously he's one of the most competitive humans you'd ever be around in your life. And it doesn't change.
Even on the river?
Yeah. Oh, it doesn't change out there.
So what's it like to have Joe Blomquist, Mark Few, and yourself? Because for some reason I'm thinking that's going to be a competitive bunch right there.
No, well, I'm
because
not.
I've spent
you know,
time in the boat
honestly,
with Joe.
maybe I'm getting old, but like I tell people all the time that if fishing was about the fish, I'd have quit a long time ago because
Right.
I've caught so many fish. I don't think he thinks about it that way. So he is intense. When we go fishing, he's out there to catch fish. Period. Like I'll catch a fish and I'll sit down on the bank and kind of enjoy the day, enjoy my natural surroundings, maybe eat a sandwich, throw some chips in, have a sip of water, or
That's
whatever,
my
and
style.
he'll be pounding the water, like
Yeah.
pounding it.
But that's speaking Joe Blomquist language, though.
Yes,
So
exactly.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
What you indicated that one of your first games was Dan Dickau's senior season. What would you say the your learning curve, if you will? You mentioned the trajectory of it.
Yeah.
You said, "Well, I wasn't good at that time." What would you say? I mean, other than just kind of the cliche of experience, but what changed your ability to call the games the way you're satisfied with?
Well,
that you're
I'm
proud
still
of?
not saying I'm any good at it, right? I'm just saying that.
Well, you've been doing it a long time.
Yeah, I
so
have
you're
been doing it a
something
long
right.
time, and people are hiring me, so that says
Right.
that says one thing, right? I just think it's being honest,
Mm-hmm.
you know, having the ability to be reflective, and being committed to getting better,
Mm-hmm.
and not assuming that you're doing well, because, man, the tape doesn't lie.
Right. Yeah, that's a
The
good point.
tape doesn't lie. So you can call a game and you can go back and watch it. You know,
Do you have moments like that?
oh,
Where you look
my
back and
gosh,
think,
and
I
I
don't even
cringe.
I don't
yeah,
even want to watch
I
this.
cringe. Yeah, not so many anymore, but there definitely was a time, and so but there's I did that whether I was sports anchoring, sports reporting, play-by-play. That's the only way you get better.
Doing
I've
it.
done it in fishing. You know, all of these years shooting television, fishing. Like, the video doesn't lie. So when you're down in Baja and your boat's surrounded by Dorado and they're eating the fly and you're setting the hook and the fish are coming off and the guide is yelling at you, quit trout setting, and you're like, I'm not trout setting. I'm strip setting. They're like, no, you're trout. I'm like, get lost.
Yeah.
I am strip setting.
That's interesting. That's
Right?
actually a good show. I've actually
Yeah,
watched
I go
the one in
home
Baja.
and I look at the video, and sure enough, I'm trout setting, which for those that don't fly fish, you won't hook many fish in saltwater if you're trout setting.
Yeah.
And so
Tip-
I was
tip-
wrong.
tip up.
The tape doesn't lie.
So the
you
guides
got-
were right.
The guides are right.
Yeah.
So
Did you ever
got-
call him back and tell him they were
Well, I saw those guys a lot, and
Yeah,
so
yeah.
But I would watch it at night. We'd go back after a day, and
Mm-hmm.
I'd pull them up, and I'm like, all right. And so by the next day,
Yeah,
it's
like,
practice.
We'll change that up a bit.
Yeah. Video
Wow.
never lies, right?
What's your next project? If you can talk about what's maybe whether it be Seasons on the Fly or
Yeah.
other in terms of production.
Yeah. Well, so I have this lodge up in Alaska, right? It's in Bristol Bay on
Mm-hmm.
the Kvichak River. It's called Seasons on the Fly Lodge. It's a do-it-yourself place. It's really cool. It's my favorite river in the world to fish. I don't own a lodge because I wanted to. I own a lodge because it's on my favorite river.
There you go.
These trout are amazing in that thing, and it's the largest run of salmon in the world. So I think the next evolution of Seasons on the Fly is to get it into schools. We do a program with the Iditarod. There's a whole education department. ExxonMobil underwrites it, and it offers lesson plans, and so they use the Iditarod as a backdrop to teach math, science, history, things like that. Schools from all over the country.
It's a great idea, though.
Right.
We have a
tracker. We're putting up 400 pieces of video for these kids to watch in a 10-day period during the race. And I want to do the same thing with Seasons on the Fly. I want to produce an educational portal that teaches math, science. It doesn't teach kids how to fly fish or fish, but it uses what we do and what we love as a backdrop to teach math, science, and history.
It makes it tangible.
Yeah, teach science. I mean, so I think in time what we could do is take a couple of weeks from this lodge and evolve it into a wilderness classroom, somehow get a national program, get it underwritten, get teachers create some video platform that they could use for their lesson plans to teach hydrology, fisheries, whatever it might be, weather, you know, and somehow have some sort of program that allows kids that otherwise wouldn't have the ability, you know, to come up and see a place like that, to get them out there. And so that's really where I want Seasons on the Fly to go, is to continue to build the brand, but also to start giving back. Because as I said in the beginning of this, not that there aren't other great stewards in this country that do all kinds of things. There have been some of our greatest that were fly fishermen. And if we can get the next generation off of their tablets and their screens and get them outdoors, Ryan, like you and I grew up outdoors, I think that the natural world will be a better place 50 years from now if we're able to inspire people to do that. So I'm hoping, you know, again, Seasons on the Fly was designed to help inspire the next generations, that we can actually get into classrooms and start touching kids with it. And so the team is starting now to try to look at opportunities to figure out how to do it.
Well, I think that's a great idea. You're looking at derivative ideas. You've already created a great brand. What can we do with this brand? How can we give back? Thank you, Greg. Thank you for being here.
Good to see you.
I appreciate it. We made it work.
We should fish.
We'll do it.
Yeah, we should go fishing. Yeah.
Thank you so much. See you next time.
Business Talks is produced in Spokane, Washington by SpokaneTalksOnline.com, which is solely responsible for its content. Ask a question, recommend a guest, and hear this program again online anytime at SpokaneTalksOnline.com. Business Talks is brought to you by our friends at STCU and Well Dressed Walrus. Business Talks wishes you good business and a good day.